The knock came at 11:47 p.m., sharp and urgent, against the worn wood of Daniel Hayes' front door. He froze, one hand still gripping the sink faucet, dish soap dripping onto the linoleum. Nobody knocked at his door. Not ever. Not at this hour. Not in this forgotten corner of South Seattle, where the streetlights flickered more than they shone and neighbors kept to themselves like it was a survival strategy. Through the window he could see her, a figure in expensive clothes that didn't belong here, shaking so hard she could barely stand, mascara streaked down her face like war paint. Behind her, taillights disappeared into the rain. She turned, and their eyes met through the glass. In that moment, Daniel knew, whoever she was running from, they weren't far behind. If you want to see where this story goes, stay with me until the very end. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Hit that like button if you're ready for this. Daniel Hayes stood motionless in his cramped kitchen, staring at the woman through the window. Every instinct screamed at him to pretend he wasn't home, to turn off the lights and wait for her to leave. He'd built his life on a foundation of invisibility. Don't get involved, don't ask questions, don't let anyone in. It had kept him safe, kept his daughter safe. But something about the way she looked at him, the raw desperation in her eyes, made walking away impossible. He unlocked the door. "Please," her voice cracked on that single word. "I need help." Up close, she looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine and then been dragged through hell. Her cream-colored coat was soaked through, designer heels caked with mud. Diamonds glinted at her ears, incongruous with the terror radiating off her in waves. She couldn't have been more than 30. "Are you hurt?" Daniel asked, his voice rough from disuse. He didn't talk much these days. Work, his daughter Emma. That was it. "No. I mean, not physically." She glanced over her shoulder at the empty street. "Can I come in? Just for a few minutes. I'll leave. I need to think." Every rational part of his brain said no. This woman was trouble, expensive trouble, and he had Emma sleeping upstairs to think about. But he stepped aside anyway. She moved past him quickly, bringing the smell of rain and something floral, something that didn't belong in his house of mac and cheese and overdue bills. He closed the door, suddenly aware of how small his living room was, how the couch sagged in the middle, how the coffee table had a water ring he'd been meaning to sand out for 6 months. "Thank you." She wrapped her arms around herself, still shaking. "I'm sorry. I know this is insane. I saw your light, and What happened?" Daniel stayed by the door, one ear tuned to the stairs where Emma slept. She was 7, and she asked too many questions. If she woke up and found a stranger here, he'd be answering them until sunrise. The woman laughed, but it came out broken. "What happened? God, where do I even start?" She pressed her palms to her eyes. When she lowered them, her mascara had smeared worse. My husband happened. I need to leave him, but he can't." Her breath hitched. "I'm sorry. You don't need to hear this. You got somewhere to go?" "I thought I did. A friend's place in Ballard. But when I called from the taxi," she trailed off. "Turns out my friends aren't really my friends. They're his friends. His business associates. She stopped herself. "It doesn't matter." Daniel moved to the kitchen, filled a glass with water from the tap. His hands were calloused, dirt still under his nails from today's job, reshaping a hedge maze for some tech executive's estate in Medina. He'd spent 8 hours on his knees in the cold, making sure every angle was perfect, knowing the owner probably wouldn't even notice, just like they never noticed the guy doing the work. He handed her the glass. She took it with both hands, like she needed something to hold on to. "I'm Lena," she said after a long drink. "Lena Carter." Carter. The name pinged something in his memory, but he couldn't place it. "Daniel!" "Daniel." She tested it out, managed something like a real smile. "Thank you, Daniel, for not slamming the door in my face." "Still might," he said, but without heat. That got a real laugh out of her, short and surprised. "Fair enough?" They stood in awkward silence. The refrigerator hummed. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked, Emma turning in her sleep. Lena noticed Daniel tense. "You have a kid." It wasn't a question, but he nodded anyway. "I should go." She set the glass down on his counter, right next to Emma's lunchbox with its faded princess stickers. "I've already imposed enough." It's midnight, raining. You got cash for another taxi? Lena's expression answered for her. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. It needed cutting. Everything needed something. Couch pulls out. You can stay tonight. Tomorrow we figure out next steps. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. He moved to the closet, pulled out a blanket that had seen better days. But we're clear. Tomorrow you figure out where you're actually going. I'm not running a shelter. Of course. Relief flooded her face. Just tonight, I promise. Daniel showed her how the couch worked, found her a pillow, pointed out the bathroom. The whole time, he felt like he was watching himself from outside his body. This wasn't him. He didn't do spontaneous. He didn't let strangers into his home. But something about Lena, maybe the way she held herself together even while clearly falling apart, made him want to help. There's a lock on the bathroom door, he said, then immediately felt stupid for mentioning it. But Lena just nodded, understanding what he wasn't saying. Thank you. He left her there, climbing the stairs to check on Emma. His daughter slept sprawled across her twin bed, one arm flung over her stuffed rabbit, mouth slightly open. She looked so much like her mother that sometimes Daniel had to look away. 3 years gone, and he still couldn't walk past Sarah's photo without feeling the knife twist. Downstairs, he heard water running in the bathroom. The pipes groaned, another thing he needed to fix. The list was endless. He didn't sleep much that night. Every sound from downstairs made him tense, waiting for something to go wrong. Around 3 a.m., he heard crying, muffled but unmistakable. He sat up, then forced himself to lie back down. She needed privacy. Whatever hell she'd walked out of, she'd earned the right to fall apart in peace. Morning came gray and drizzly, standard Seattle October fare. Daniel moved through his routine on autopilot, shower, coffee, pack Emma's lunch. He was spreading peanut butter when he remembered Lena. She was still asleep on the couch, curled into herself, still wearing yesterday's ruined clothes. In daylight, he could see more details. A bruise on her wrist, fading yellow-green. The way her hands were clenched even in sleep, like she was ready to fight. Daddy? Emma appeared at his elbow, rubbing her eyes. Who's that? Daniel crouched to her level, keeping his voice low. Her name's Lena. She needed a place to stay last night. Emma peered around him, curiosity winning over shyness. Is she your friend? Not exactly. She's just... He struggled for an explanation that would satisfy a 7-year-old. She needed help. Oh. Emma processed this with the seriousness she applied to everything. Like when we helped that bird with the broken wing? Despite everything, Daniel smiled. Something like that. Lena stirred, then sat up quickly, disoriented. Her eyes found Daniel, then Emma, and he watched her force herself to relax, to smile. Good morning, she said, voice rough with sleep. Morning. Daniel straightened. Emma, go brush your teeth. Bus comes in 20 minutes. Emma hesitated, staring at Lena with open curiosity, then scampered off. I'm sorry, Lena said immediately. I didn't mean to... It's fine. Daniel poured coffee into a chipped mug, slid it across the counter to her. Black okay? Perfect. She wrapped her hands around it like she had the water glass last night. What time is it? 7:30. God. She closed her eyes. I should go. You've been more than kind, but where? The question hung there. Lena's grip tightened on the mug. I don't know, she admitted finally. I have money. Well, I have credit cards, but he'll track those. She laughed without humor. I sound paranoid. You sound scared, Daniel corrected. Different thing. Emma thundered back down the stairs, toothbrush still in her mouth. All done. Emma. Daniel gave her a look. She grinned, disappeared back upstairs to rinse and spit. Lena watched the exchange with something soft in her expression. How old? 7, 8 in December. She's beautiful. She's a handful. But he said it with pride. Lena stood, smoothing down her wrinkled clothes. I should at least get cleaned up. Is it okay if I... Showers upstairs, towels in the cabinet. She nodded, started to move, then stopped. Daniel, I know this is weird, all of this, but thank you, truly. Don't thank me yet. Hot water's temperamental. That got another real smile out of her. 20 minutes later, Daniel was wrestling Emma into her jacket when his phone buzzed. Work. The crew chief asking if he could swap routes, take the Bellevue properties instead of Shoreline. Yeah, fine, Daniel said into the phone, already mentally rearranging his day. It meant an extra 30 minutes of driving, less time with Emma after school. But the Bellevue houses tipped better. He hung up to find Emma staring at him with those two knowing eyes. You're working late again. Just a little. Mrs. Chen will be there when you get home. Emma's face fell. She liked Mrs. Chen fine, but the neighbor was 80 and mostly let Emma watch TV. You promised we'd go to the park. Guilt twisted in his chest. Tomorrow, I promise. You always say that. Emma, the bus horn blared outside, cutting off his response. Emma grabbed her backpack, shot him one more reproachful look, and trudged out. Daniel watched through the window as she climbed aboard, shoulders slumped. The bus pulled away. That looked fun, Lena said from behind him. He turned. She'd showered, put her hair up in a wet knot, but she was still wearing the same clothes. They looked even worse in daylight. Single-parent life, Daniel said with a shrug. It's all guilt and scheduling conflicts. Where's her mother? The question was gentle, but it still landed like a punch. Dead, car accident 3 years ago. I'm so sorry. He waved it off, uncomfortable with sympathy. You need clothes. There's a Goodwill about 10 minutes from here. I can drop you on my way to work. I can't keep taking from you. You can pay me back when you're back on your feet. He grabbed his keys. Come on. I'm already late. They drove in silence, Lena watching the city scroll past. This part of South Seattle was all strip malls and modest houses, chain-link fences and cars held together with prayer. A different universe from the gleaming towers downtown. How long have you lived here? She asked. 4 years. It's not much, but it's ours. I think it's nice. Real. Daniel snorted. That's a polite way of saying run down. I mean it. She turned to look at him. Everything in my life was curated, perfect, soulless. Your house feels lived in, loved. He didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. At the Goodwill, he handed her 2 20s from his wallet. Should be enough for basics. Daniel, pay me back later. He put the truck in park. I finish around 6. Meet back at the house? Lena stared at the money in her hand. Why are you doing this? Honestly, don't know. He gripped the steering wheel. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe you'll rob me blind and disappear. But you looked like you needed help, and I'm apparently incapable of walking past that. I won't rob you, she said quietly, and I will pay you back, every cent. Sure. She climbed out, stood on the curb looking lost despite the money in her hand. Daniel almost drove off, almost left it at that. But something made him roll down the window. Lena, whatever you're running from, be careful. People with money and power, they don't like losing things they think they own. Her expression hardened. I'm not a thing. I know that, but does he? She didn't answer, just turned and walked into the store. Daniel drove to work, turning that question over in his mind. He'd seen the bruise, heard the fear in her voice. Whatever Lena Carter was running from, it wasn't just a bad marriage. It was something worse. The day passed in the usual rhythm of physical labor, mowing, trimming, hauling bags of mulch that made his back scream. The Bellevue houses were always the same, massive, empty, perfect. The owners rarely home. Just Daniel and his crew making sure every blade of grass met some impossible standard. Around 4, taking a water break, he pulled out his phone and did something he knew he shouldn't, typed Lena Carter into the search bar. The results made his stomach drop. Society pages, charity galas. Her smiling next to a man who looked like he'd been assembled by a PR team. Perfect teeth, perfect hair, perfect suit. Marcus Carter, venture capitalist. Net worth estimated at north of $200 million. Daniel scrolled through images. Lena in designer gowns. Lena cutting ribbons at hospital wings. Lena looking beautiful and empty in every single photo. Shit, he muttered. What's up? His coworker Miguel appeared, grabbing his own water. Nothing. Daniel pocketed the phone. Just remembered something. But his mind was racing. What the hell had he gotten himself into? This wasn't some regular domestic situation. This was money. Real money. The kind that came with lawyers and private investigators and people who made problems disappear. He thought about telling Lena she needed to leave. tonight, before this got complicated. But when he got home at 6:15, she was in his kitchen cooking something that smelled incredible, wearing jeans and a simple sweater from Goodwill, her hair down and drying naturally. Emma sat at the table doing homework, chattering about her day, and Lena was listening, really listening, asking questions, laughing at the right moments. The scene was so painfully domestic that Daniel had to stop in the doorway and just take it in. Lena looked up, saw him watching. "I hope this is okay. I found some chicken in your freezer, some vegetables. Nothing fancy." "It's fine." He set down his keys, suddenly aware of how filthy he was. Dirt under his nails, grass stains on his jeans, sweat dried to salt on his skin. Next to Lena, even in Goodwill clothes, he felt like exactly what he was. A landscaper who could barely keep his own lawn alive. "How was work?" Emma asked without looking up from her math worksheet. "Long?" He moved to wash his hands at the sink, Lena stepping aside to give him room. This close, he could smell her shampoo. She'd used his, the cheap stuff from Costco, but somehow on her it smelled different, better. "I got some things at Goodwill," Lena said, a little nervous. "Basics. And I called around to some shelters, but everything's full or has wait lists. I'm sorry. I know I said one night." "It's fine," Daniel heard himself say. "Stay a few days while you figure things out." Emma's head snapped up. "Really?" "Really." He met Lena's eyes. "But we need to talk, after dinner." Something flickered in her expression. Fear, maybe. But she nodded. Dinner was strange, good strange. They sat at his small table, the three of them, passing dishes. Emma dominated the conversation, telling Lena about her teacher and the boy who ate paste and the girl who had a cat with 6 toes. Lena asked questions, remembered details, made Emma laugh. Daniel watched them both, feeling something in his chest crack open. Something that had been sealed shut since Sarah died. After dinner, Emma wanted to show Lena her rock collection. Daniel stood at the sink washing dishes, listening to them upstairs, Emma's voice high and excited, Lena's responses warm and genuine. Mrs. Chen called to check in. "I saw you had a visitor last night. Everything okay?" News traveled fast in this neighborhood. "Everything's fine. Just a friend who needed a place to crash." "A lady friend?" Mrs. Chen's tone was loaded with hope. "Just a friend," Daniel repeated firmly. "You need more friends, Daniel. You work too much." "Noted. Thanks for watching Emma today." When he hung up, Lena was coming down the stairs. "She's doing her reading, 30 minutes, she said. Then bed." "Sounds right." He dried his hands, gestured to the living room. "We should talk." They sat on opposite ends of the couch. Lena tucked her feet under her, waiting. "I looked you up," Daniel said. No point dancing around it. "You're married to Marcus Carter." Her expression closed off. "You recognize the name." "Hard not to. He's all over the business section." Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Lena, that's serious money, serious power. If he's looking for you..." "He is." She cut him off, voice flat. "He absolutely is. And when he finds me, he'll do everything possible to make me come back. Not because he loves me, because I'm his. Like his cars, his houses, his companies. Just another asset he owns." "Does he..." Daniel struggled with the question. "Did he hurt you?" Lena pulled down the sleeve of her sweater, revealing more bruises. Different stages of healing, yellow, green, purple. "Not often," she said quietly. "He's too controlled for that. But when I pushed back, when I questioned him, when I dared to have an opinion..." She let the sleeve drop. "It got worse over time. The isolation, the monitoring. He tracked my phone, my credit cards. Had his security follow me. I couldn't see friends without his approval. Couldn't work. Couldn't have my own money." Daniel's hands clenched into fists. "How long?" 4 years married. 2 years before that dating, though back then he hid it better. She smiled bitterly. "I was 24 when we met, waitressing, trying to make it as a photographer. He seemed so sophisticated, so successful. He said he'd support my career. Instead, he dismantled it piece by piece until I had nothing left but him. Why not divorce him?" "I tried. 2 years ago. Filed papers." Her voice went hollow. "He had them thrown out. His lawyers buried me, made me look unstable, claimed I was having a breakdown. Got a judge to order counseling with a therapist on his payroll. By the end, I believed it. that I was crazy, that I was lucky he put up with me. That's not, I know. She cut him off. I know that now. It took me 2 more years to see it clearly again, to plan. I've been hiding cash, little bits at a time, getting documents together. But the night before I came here, we had a charity gala. He drank too much, got rough, and I couldn't anymore. I told him I was leaving. He laughed, said I'd never survive a day without him. So you ran. So I ran. She wiped at her eyes. Stupid, impulsive, no real plan. I grabbed my purse and walked out, took a taxi as far as my cash would go, which was here. And then I saw your light. Daniel sat back, processing. He's going to find you eventually. I know. And when he does? I don't know. The fear was back in her voice. But I can't go back. I'd rather... She stopped herself. Don't say that. Daniel's voice came out harder than he intended. Don't even think it. They sat in heavy silence. Upstairs, Emma called out her reading was done. I'll go, Lena said, standing. Tomorrow. I'll figure something out. I won't drag you and Emma into this. Daniel should have agreed, should have been relieved. Instead, he heard himself say, Where will you go? I don't know. A motel, maybe. Somewhere he won't think to look. With what money? I have some cash. Enough for a few days. And then? Lena's composure finally cracked. I don't know, Daniel, okay? I don't have a plan. I don't have resources. I don't have friends who aren't his friends or family who aren't impressed by his money. I have nothing. I am nothing without him. That's what 4 years of this does. It empties you out until you can't remember who you were before. Her voice had risen. From upstairs, Emma called, Daddy? Is everything okay? Daniel moved to the stairs. Everything's fine, sweetheart. Get ready for bed. When he turned back, Lena was crying silently, hands over her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I shouldn't have come here, shouldn't have involved you. Daniel crossed the room, sat beside her. Not touching, but close. You're not nothing. You got out. That took guts. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. He handed her a tissue from the box on the side table, kept there for Emma's frequent nosebleeds. Look, stay a few more days while you figure out your next move, but we need ground rules. Lena lowered her hands. Okay. No contact with him, no social media, no credit cards, nothing he can trace. Already done. Emma comes first. If this gets dangerous, if he shows up here, you leave. Immediately. No arguments. Of course. And you pull your weight. I'm not running a charity. You can help with Emma, with the house, whatever needs doing. I can do that. Hope flickered in her expression. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This could blow up in both our faces. But even as he said it, Daniel knew he'd made his choice. Maybe it was stupid, maybe it would cost him. But looking at Lena, broken but not beaten, scared but still fighting, he couldn't just turn her away. Upstairs, Emma called for him. Bedtime routine. Daniel gestured up. Go. I'll clean up down here. He climbed the stairs, found Emma in her pajamas, teeth brushed, face scrubbed. Is Lena staying? She asked as he tucked her in. For a little while. Good. I like her. She's sad, though. Emma hugged her rabbit. Like you were after Mommy died. The observation hit him sideways. Yeah? Yeah, but you got better. Maybe she will too. Daniel kissed her forehead. Maybe. Now sleep. School tomorrow. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, Emma Bean. He turned off the light, left the door cracked like she preferred. Downstairs, he could hear Lena moving around the kitchen, water running, dishes clinking. For the first time in 3 years, his house didn't feel empty, and that, Daniel realized, might be the most dangerous thing of all. The first week passed in a strange rhythm that felt both foreign and oddly natural. Lena folded herself into the gaps of their lives carefully, like she was afraid of taking up too much space. She woke before Daniel, had coffee ready by the time he stumbled downstairs. She helped Emma with homework at the kitchen table while Daniel made dinner, or more accurately, while she made dinner and he watched, useless with anything beyond pasta and grilled cheese. You don't have to do all this, he said on the 4th night, watching her dice vegetables with the kind of precision that spoke of actual training. I know. She didn't look up from the cutting board. But I want to. It feels good to be useful. Emma was sprawled on the living room floor, supposedly doing her spelling words, but mostly drawing elaborate pictures in the margins. Lena, how do you spell beautiful? Beautiful, Lena called back. That's too many letters, Emma complained. Blame the French, Lena said, and Daniel caught the ghost of a smile. These small moments accumulated like snowfall, quiet, gradual, until suddenly the whole landscape looked different. Lena taught Emma how to braid her hair. She fixed the wobbly table leg Daniel had been meaning to deal with for months. She reorganized the kitchen cabinets in a way that actually made sense, labels written in her neat handwriting. You don't have to label everything, Daniel said, staring at the spice rack. Have you ever tried to find cumin in a hurry? Lena countered. It's chaos in there. It's character. It's a fire hazard waiting for the wrong moment. He couldn't argue with that, but underneath the domestic ease, tension simmered. Lena jumped at unexpected sounds. She checked the windows compulsively, especially at night. She'd positioned herself so she could see both the front door and the back exit from anywhere in the house. And Daniel noticed she always knew where her shoes were, like she was ready to run at any second. On the 8th day, Mrs. Chen knocked on the door while Daniel was at work. Lena almost didn't answer, but Emma was home sick with a cold, and the persistent knocking made her nervous about drawing attention. Hello, dear, Mrs. Chen said, her sharp eyes taking in everything. Lena's borrowed clothes, her nervous posture, the way her hand gripped the doorframe. I brought soup for Emma. Daniel mentioned she was under the weather. That's very kind. Lena accepted the container. I'm Lena. I'm staying with Daniel for a bit. I know who you are. Mrs. Chen's tone wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. Whole neighborhood knows by now. Not much happens around here that doesn't make the rounds. Lena's stomach dropped. I see. Don't worry. Nobody's talking to anyone official, if that's what's got you worried. Mrs. Chen tilted her head. But you should know, a couple days ago, a man came around asking questions. Expensive suit, expensive car. Said he was looking for his wife. The world tilted. Lena gripped the door harder. What did you tell him? That I mind my own business and suggested he do the same. Mrs. Chen's expression softened slightly. But he left his card. Said there was a reward for information. Some people around here, they need money bad enough to make moral compromises. I understand. Lena's voice came out steady despite the panic clawing up her throat. Thank you for telling me. Daniel's a good man, Mrs. Chen said. Lost too much already. You bring trouble to his door, that's on you. I know. Do you? The old woman's gaze was piercing, because from where I stand, you look like the kind of trouble that doesn't ask permission before it burns everything down. Lena had no answer to that. Mrs. Chen left, and Lena closed the door with shaking hands. Emma called from upstairs asking for water, and Lena forced herself to move, to function, to breathe through the terror. Marcus had sent someone. Of course he had. She'd been stupid to think she could hide in plain sight, that he wouldn't have resources to track her down. The only question now was how long before the net closed completely. When Daniel got home that evening, Lena met him at the door. We need to talk. Emma was asleep upstairs, knocked out by cold medicine and exhaustion. They sat at the kitchen table, the remains of dinner between them. Mrs. Chen told me someone came looking, Daniel said before Lena could speak. She called me at work. I need to leave. Lena's hands were folded in front of her, white-knuckled. Tonight, before this gets worse. Where will you go? I don't know. But I can't stay here. Mrs. Chen was right. I'm putting you and Emma at risk. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, staring at his coffee mug. What did this guy look like? The one asking questions. Mrs. Chen said expensive suit, expensive car. That's half of Seattle. He looked up. Could be a PI. Could be one of your husband's people. Could be someone trying to collect a bounty. Does it matter? Yeah, it does. Daniel leaned back. Because if it's a PI, they're just doing a job. They'll report back, but they're not going to kick down my door. If it's someone on his payroll, that's different. They might push harder. How do you know this? I don't live in a bubble, Lena. I watch the news, read things. He rubbed his face. Look, I'm not saying stay or go. That's your call. But running without a plan is how you end up worse off than before. I can't just sit here waiting for him to find me. No, but you can be smart about next moves. Daniel pulled out his phone. There's a legal aid office downtown, free consultations. You could talk to someone about your options. Legal aid can't go up against Marcus Carter's lawyers. Maybe not in court, but they can tell you what rights you have, what he can and can't do. Daniel met her eyes. Knowledge is something, at least. Lena wanted to argue, but she was so tired of fighting alone. Okay, I'll make an appointment. Good. He stood, started clearing dishes. And Lena, you're not putting us at risk. Emma and I, we're choosing to help. That's on us, not you. The words settled something in her chest, even as guilt gnawed at the edges. That night, lying on the pull-out couch, Lena stared at the ceiling and tried to make a plan. But every scenario ended the same way. Marcus won. He always won. That was the fundamental truth of their marriage. He had money, power, connections, and she had nothing. Except maybe she didn't. Not anymore. She had Daniel, who asked nothing in return for his help. She had Emma, who'd drawn her a picture of flowers that morning with "Get well soon, Lena," written in crooked letters. She had Mrs. Chen, who'd warned her instead of turning her in for reward money. It wasn't much, but it was more than she'd had a week ago. The next morning, Lena called the legal aid office from Daniel's ancient landline. Her cell phone had been turned off since that first night, battery pulled, SIM card destroyed. The receptionist scheduled her for Thursday afternoon. I'll take off early, Daniel said when she told him. Drive you there. You don't have to... Lena, stop arguing when people try to help you. She swallowed hard. Okay. Thank you. The days until Thursday crawled. Lena threw herself into domestic tasks with an intensity that bordered on manic. She deep-cleaned the bathroom, organized Emma's overflowing toy chest, fixed the screen door that had been hanging crooked since summer. Physical work helped quiet her mind, gave her something to control when everything else felt like chaos. Emma recovered from her cold and went back to school, but not before extracting a promise from Lena to help with her science project. We have to make a volcano, Emma explained seriously, with vinegar and baking soda. I think I can handle that, Lena said. They spent Wednesday evening constructing a papier-mâché mountain on newspapers spread across the kitchen table. Emma was meticulous, layering strips just so, tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. She looked so much like Daniel in those moments. Same serious expression, same careful hands. My mom used to help me with projects, Emma said suddenly, before she died. Lena's hands stilled. Yeah? Yeah, she was good at art stuff, like you. Emma dipped another strip in the paste. Do you have kids? The question landed like a physical blow. No. Did you want them? Lena thought about the miscarriage 2 years ago, the one Marcus had dismissed as probably for the best, given her emotional instability. The memory still ached. I did. Once. You still could, Emma said with the brutal optimism of childhood. You're not that old. Despite everything, Lena laughed. Thanks, kiddo. I mean it. My teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, had a baby last year, and she's like ancient, at least 40. Good to know I still have time. They worked in companionable silence. Daniel came home late, dirty and exhausted, and stopped in the doorway to watch them. The look on his face made something flip in Lena's stomach. That's quite a volcano, he said. It's going to be epic, Emma declared. Lena says we can add red food coloring to the lava. Does she now? For realism, Lena added. Daniel shook his head, but he was smiling, real smiling, not the tight expression he usually wore. I'm going to shower. Try not to destroy my kitchen. After Emma went to bed, Daniel and Lena ended up on the back porch. It was cold, their breath fogging in the October air, but the small enclosed space felt safer somehow than the exposed front. She's getting attached, Daniel said quietly. Emma? I know. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's good for her. She's been so closed off since Sarah died. He pulled his jacket tighter. I worry I'm not enough, that she needs, I don't know, a mother figure or whatever. You're a great dad, Daniel. I'm a mess. I work too much. Half the time I don't know what I'm doing. Last week she asked me about periods and I nearly had a stroke. Lena couldn't help but laugh. What did you say? I stuttered something about asking Mrs. Chen and then fled to the garage. He grimaced. Father of the Year material right there. You're doing better than you think. Emma's happy, healthy. She knows she's loved. That's what matters. Yeah? He looked at her sideways. You and Marcus, did you ever talk about kids? The question was careful, but Lena heard what he wasn't asking. I got pregnant once. Lost it at 12 weeks. He was relieved. She wrapped her arms around herself. Said we'd try again when I was more stable, but that was code for never. He didn't want to share me, even with a child. That's... Daniel stopped himself. I'm sorry. Don't be. In hindsight, it was probably a blessing. Can you imagine bringing a kid into that situation? She stared at the dark yard. Sometimes I think about what kind of mother I would have been, if I would have been any good at it. You're good with Emma. That's different. She's yours. There's no pressure to be perfect. Lena, nobody's perfect. Parenthood is just controlled chaos and hoping you don't screw them up too badly. She smiled despite herself. That's comforting. It's honest. He shifted. Look, tomorrow, the legal aid thing. Don't get your hopes up too high. But don't assume the worst either. Just see what they say. Okay. They sat in silence, listening to distant traffic, a dog barking 3 houses down. The cold seeped through Lena's borrowed jacket, but she didn't want to go inside. Out here, in the dark, things felt possible. Can I ask you something? Daniel's voice was quiet. What made you finally leave? That night. What was the final straw? Lena considered lying, giving some sanitized version, but Daniel had earned honesty. He told me he'd scheduled a procedure, said my mood swings were getting worse, that I needed help. She forced the words out. It was a psychiatric commitment. Voluntary, he said, but we both knew what that meant. 30 days minimum in a facility where he controlled the doctors, the treatment, everything. And when I came out, I'd be so broken down I'd never try to leave again. Jesus. So I smiled, said okay, went to the gala like nothing was wrong, and while he was drunk and schmoozing investors, I walked out. She looked at Daniel. I had maybe a 2-hour head start before he noticed I was gone. Took a taxi until my cash ran out. Ended up here. Saw your light and thought, I don't know what I thought, that maybe someone would help. I'm glad you knocked. The words hung between them, heavy with implications neither was ready to examine. Thursday arrived too fast. Daniel left work at 3, picked up Emma from school, dropped her at Mrs. Chen's despite Emma's protest that she wanted to come too. This is boring grown-up stuff, Daniel told her firmly. You'll have more fun with Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Chen lets me watch TV and eat crackers. That's not fun. That's babysitting. Then suffer through it for me. In the truck, Lena was silent, hands twisted in her lap. She'd borrowed Daniel's nicest shirt, a button-down he wore to parent-teacher conferences, and paired it with her Goodwill jeans. She looked young and scared and trying very hard not to show it. You don't have to do this, Daniel said. Yes, I do. The legal aid office was in a run-down building downtown, sandwiched between a check-cashing place and a bail bonds office. The waiting room was packed, people with children, people with black eyes, people who looked like they'd been worn down to nothing by systems designed to break them. Lena fit right in. They waited 45 minutes. Daniel read 6-month-old magazines while Lena stared at the intake forms in her lap. When her name was finally called, she stood on shaky legs. You want me to come? Daniel asked. No, I need to do this alone. She disappeared through a door. Daniel went back to his magazine, but he couldn't focus. Instead, he watched the other people waiting, all carrying their own burdens, all hoping some overworked lawyer could perform a miracle on a non-existent budget. Lena came back 90 minutes later. Her eyes were red but dry. In the truck, Daniel waited. Finally, Lena spoke. She was nice. The lawyer, young, probably fresh out of school, but she knew her stuff. Lena stared straight ahead. She said, I have options. I can file for divorce in Washington since I'm living here now. Marcus can fight it, but he can't stop it forever. It'll be ugly and expensive and drawn out, but it's possible. That's good, right? She also said he'll use everything against me. The fact that I left, that I have no income, no home, no stability. He'll paint me as unstable, irresponsible. His lawyers will bury me in motions and delays until I run out of money to fight back. Lena's voice cracked. She said my best option is probably to negotiate a settlement. Agree to go quietly in exchange for enough money to start over. Would he agree to that? I don't know, maybe. If it means he wins, he might. She finally looked at Daniel. But that feels like giving up. It's not giving up, it's strategy. It's letting him win. He already won, Lena. The second he isolated you, controlled your money, your life, he won. This is about getting out with something instead of nothing. The words were harsh but true. Lena absorbed them in silence. The lawyer said she'd take my case pro bono if I decided to file, but she was clear about the odds. Marcus has resources. I don't. That's the math. Daniel pulled into his driveway, killed the engine. So what do you want to do? I want to fight. I want to stand up in court and tell everyone what he did. I want him to face consequences. Her hands clenched into fists. But I'm scared of what he'll do, of losing, of ending up right back where I started. You won't end up back there. Worst case, you're in the same position you're in now, free but broke. That's still better than before. Is it? I'm living on your couch, Daniel, wearing borrowed clothes, dependent on your charity. How is that freedom? The question had an edge to it, anger leaking through. Daniel didn't take it personally. Because you chose this. Every morning you wake up here, that's a choice you're making. That's the difference. Lena's anger deflated. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. It's fine. You're allowed to be angry. They sat in the truck while shadows lengthened across the yard. Through the window, Daniel could see his house. Small, run down, but his. He thought about what it must look like to Lena, coming from a world of mansions and private jets, probably like slumming it. I'm going to file, Lena said suddenly. The lawyer said she'd start the paperwork tomorrow if I gave the word. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She met his eyes. And then I need to find a job. A real job. I can't keep living off your generosity. Lena, I mean it, Daniel. You've done enough, more than enough. But I need to stand on my own feet or this doesn't mean anything. He wanted to argue, but he understood. Okay, we'll figure it out. Inside, the house smelled like the casserole Mrs. Chen had dropped off. Emma was at the kitchen table, supposedly doing homework, but actually drawing elaborate doodles in her notebook. How was boring grown-up stuff? She asked without looking up. Boring, Lena said, but she managed a smile. How was Mrs. Chen's? She taught me to play mahjong. I'm terrible at it. That's because you're 7, Daniel said, ruffling her hair. Dinner was quiet. Emma chattered about school, something about a boy who brought a frog in his backpack, but Daniel could see Lena was somewhere else mentally. Processing, planning, preparing for a fight she wasn't sure she could win. After Emma went to bed, Lena pulled out her phone, the burner Daniel had bought her 2 days ago, cheap and untraceable. She stared at it for a long time. I need to call him, she said finally. Marcus, tell him I'm filing. You don't owe him that. Maybe not, but I want him to hear it from me. I want him to know I'm not coming back. Daniel didn't argue. This was her choice to make. Lena stepped onto the back porch. Through the window, Daniel watched her pace, phone to her ear. He couldn't hear the conversation, but he saw her body language shift, shoulders back, chin up, fighting stance. She came back inside 10 minutes later. Her hands were shaking, but her expression was set. What did he say? Daniel asked. That I'm making a mistake, that I'll regret this, that he'll destroy me in court. She sat down hard. And then he said if I came back tonight, he'd forgive everything. We could start over. He'd get me help, real help, and we could fix our marriage. But you said no. I said I'd rather die alone than spend another minute as his wife. Lena's voice was steady despite the trembling hands. He hung up, but not before telling me I'd be hearing from his lawyers. So it's real now. Yeah, it's real. They sat in silence. Outside, wind rattled the windows. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. I'm scared, Lena admitted, terrified. But also, I don't know. Relieved? Like I've been holding my breath for 4 years and finally I can exhale. That's good. Fear means you're paying attention. Relief means you made the right choice. I hope so. She looked at him. Daniel, when this gets ugly, and it will get ugly, you can change your mind. About me staying here. I won't hold it against you. I'm not changing my mind. You say that now. But when his lawyers start digging into your life, when they show up at your work, when they try to paint you as some kind of accomplice, then they do that. Daniel's voice was firm. I'm a landscaper who took in someone who needed help. That's not a crime. In Marcus's world, it is. Oh, good thing we're not in his world. Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that Daniel's simple decency would be enough armor against what was coming. But she'd seen what Marcus did to people who got in his way. He didn't just win, he obliterated. And now Daniel and Emma were in the blast radius. That night, Lena barely slept. She kept replaying the phone call, Marcus's voice dripping with false concern, the underlying threat clear as day. She'd defied him, embarrassed him, made him look weak. He wouldn't forgive that. Around 3 a.m., she heard footsteps. Daniel appeared in the kitchen doorway, hair sticking up, wearing an old t-shirt and sweatpants. Can't sleep either? He asked. Too much in my head. He moved to the stove, put on water for tea. The domestic gesture was so normal it made Lena want to cry. Sarah used to make tea when she couldn't sleep, Daniel said, his back to Lena. Some herbal thing that tasted like grass clippings but supposedly helped. After she died, I found 17 boxes of it in the cabinet. Took me a year to throw them out. What was she like? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Stubborn, funny. She called me on my bullshit, which I needed. We met in college. She was pre-med. I was barely scraping by in general studies. No idea what I wanted to do with my life. She said that was fine, long as I figured it out eventually. Did you? Not really. Dropped out junior year when money got tight. Started working landscaping to pay bills. Kept meaning to go back, but then Sarah got pregnant and he shrugged. Life happened. We got married at City Hall, had Emma, scraped by. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. She sounds wonderful. She was. And then some drunk driver ran a red light and she wasn't anymore. He poured hot water over tea bags, handed Lena a mug. I was angry for a long time. At the driver, at the universe, at Sarah for leaving me alone with a 4-year-old and no idea how to cope. It's only been the last year or so that I can think about her without wanting to punch something. I'm sorry. Me too. He sat across from her. But I tell you this because I get it. The fear of losing everything, of being alone, of not knowing if you're strong enough to survive what's coming. After Sarah died, I didn't think I'd make it. Didn't think I could handle being a single dad, managing everything by myself, but here I am, still standing, still figuring it out. That's different. You didn't choose to lose Sarah. No, but you didn't choose the situation you're in either. You chose to get out of it. That takes a different kind of strength. Lena wrapped her hands around the warm mug. What if I'm not strong enough? Then you fake it until you are. That's what I did. They drank tea in the quiet kitchen while the clock ticked toward morning, and for the first time since she'd knocked on Daniel's door, Lena felt like maybe, just maybe, she might actually survive this. The divorce papers arrived 6 days later, delivered by a process server who looked bored and vaguely apologetic. Lena signed for them with hands that only shook a little, then stood in the doorway watching the man drive away in his beat-up sedan. The envelope felt heavy, weighted with more than just paper. She didn't open it right away. Instead, she set it on the kitchen counter and stared at it like it might explode. Daniel found her there 20 minutes later, still frozen, still staring. That them? He asked. Yeah. You going to open it? Eventually. She forced herself to move, to put on coffee, to do something normal. The lawyer said Marcus would respond fast. Guess she was right. Daniel picked up the envelope, hefted it. This is more than a response. This is a whole damn novel. He's thorough, I'll give him that. They sat at the table together while Lena finally tore open the envelope. Page after page spilled out. Legal motions, financial disclosures, character witnesses, medical records. Her medical records, pulled from the therapist Marcus had made her see. The one who diagnosed her with everything from anxiety to borderline personality disorder. Listen to this, Lena said, voice flat. Petitioner exhibits pattern of erratic behavior, emotional instability, and poor judgment. Recent abandonment of marital home without notice demonstrates continued mental health deterioration. She laughed, but it came out sharp. He's making me sound insane. Can he do that? Use your therapy records? Apparently. She flipped through more pages. And he's claiming I took marital assets, a watch, some jewelry, cash from his safe. All lies, but good luck proving it. Daniel read over her shoulder. The more he saw, the angrier he got. Marcus wasn't just fighting the divorce. He was destroying Lena piece by piece on paper, building a case that she was unstable, criminal, unfit. What's this part? Daniel pointed to a section near the end. Lena scanned it, and all the color drained from her face. He's requesting a psychiatric evaluation, court-ordered, says it's necessary to determine my fitness to make legal decisions. Can he do that? With the right judge? Maybe. She set down the papers, hands trembling again. This is what he does. He buries you in motions and evaluations and delays until you're too exhausted to fight, until going back looks easier than continuing. So we fight back. With what? I can't afford lawyers like his. Legal aid is great, but they're swamped. They can't match his resources. Then we figure something else out. Daniel's jaw was set. You didn't come this far to give up now. Before Lena could respond, Emma burst through the front door, backpack sliding off one shoulder, face flushed with excitement. Lena, guess what? I got picked for the winter concert. I'm going to be a snowflake. She stopped, noticing the papers spread across the table. What's all that? Boring adult stuff, Lena said quickly, forcing a smile. Tell me about this concert. Emma launched into details. Costumes, rehearsals, the fact that Tommy Chen couldn't carry a tune, but got picked anyway because his mom was on the PTA. Daniel caught Lena's eye over Emma's head, saw the effort it took for her to stay present, to not let the fear show. Later, after Emma was in bed, they reconvened at the kitchen table. Lena had composed an email to her lawyer, outlining everything in Marcus's response. The reply came back within an hour. She says it's all standard intimidation tactics, Lena reported, reading from her phone. The psychiatric evaluation probably won't fly, but he'll push for it to make me look unstable. The theft allegations are serious, but without proof, they're just allegations. And the medical records... She stopped. What? She says they're inadmissible without my consent, which means either Marcus forged that consent or his therapist violated ethics. Lena's expression hardened. Either way, we can fight it. File a complaint. Maybe get the records thrown out. That's something. It's a long shot, but yeah, something. She rubbed her eyes. I need to find work, real work. The lawyer said having income, stability, my own place, all that helps my case. Shows I'm not dependent on Marcus, that I can stand on my own. What kind of work? I don't know. Before Marcus, I was a photographer. Did weddings, events, some commercial work, but I haven't touched a camera in 4 years. My equipment's all at the house, his house, and my portfolio, my contacts, everything. He controlled all of it. Daniel thought for a moment. Miguel's brother owns a restaurant, needs help in the kitchen. It's not glamorous, but it's cash under the table until you get on your feet officially. I don't have kitchen experience. You cook better than anyone I know. That's experience. Lena wanted to argue, but she was too tired. Okay, can you ask him? I'll call tomorrow. 3 days later, Lena started working at Casa Verde, a small Mexican restaurant in Georgetown. The kitchen was hot, cramped, and chaotic. The head chef, Rosa, was a 60-year-old woman who ran her domain like a general and took no nonsense from anyone. You know how to dice an onion? Rosa asked Lena on her first day. Yes. Show me. Lena diced the onion. Rosa watched with critical eyes, then grunted. Not bad. You're slow, but you will get faster. Prep station is yours. Don't screw up my mise en place. It was hard work, harder than anything Lena had done in years. Her hands blistered, her feet ached. She came home smelling like garlic and cilantro, exhausted to the bone. But it was honest work, and for the first time in 4 years, Lena was earning her own money. Not much. Rosa paid her minimum wage in cash, no questions asked, but it was hers. Emma thought it was fascinating. Do you make tacos? she asked one evening. Sometimes. Mostly I chop vegetables and make sauces. That sounds boring. It is, but Rosa says if I'm good, she'll teach me the grill station. Cool. Emma considered this. When I grow up, I want to be a marine biologist or a princess. I haven't decided. Why not both? Lena said. Can you be both? I don't see why not. Daniel listened to them from the kitchen, something warm settling in his chest. This felt right. The three of them together, easy conversation, laughter. Dangerous, that feeling. He'd learned not to get attached to things that could be taken away, but it was already too late for that. Work became Lena's anchor. She threw herself into it, learning the rhythm of the kitchen, earning Rosa's grudging respect. After 2 weeks, Rosa moved her to the grill station like she'd promised. Don't burn my tortillas, Rosa warned, and watch the temperature on that carne asada. Too high and it's shoe leather. Lena didn't burn anything. She paid attention, learned fast, and kept her head down. The other kitchen staff were a mix of immigrants and locals, all working hard for not enough money, all with their own stories they didn't share. Nobody asked Lena about her past, and she didn't volunteer it. But one evening, washing dishes after the dinner rush, one of the line cooks, a young guy named Javier, asked, "You running from something?" Lena's hand stilled in the soapy water. "What makes you say that?" "Just a vibe, the way you keep your phone face down, how you never talk about where you came from." He shrugged. "A lot of people come through here running from something. No judgment." "Yeah," Lena said after a moment. "I'm running from something." "Bad ex?" "Something like that." Javier nodded like that explained everything. "My cousin, she had a bad ex. Took her 3 tries to finally get away for good. Bastard kept finding her, dragging her back. 4th time, she disappeared completely. Changed her name, moved to California, started over. Haven't heard from her in 2 years, but last I knew, she was happy." "You think she did the right thing?" "I think she did what she had to do." He grabbed a towel, started drying dishes. Sometimes that's the only right there is. The conversation stuck with Lena. Part of her envied Javier's cousin, the clean break, the total reinvention. But another part knew she couldn't do that. Running forever meant Marcus won. It meant living in fear, always looking over her shoulder, never building anything permanent. She'd rather fight and lose than disappear and survive. The first real blow came 3 weeks after the initial papers. Marcus filed a motion claiming Lena had kidnapped herself, that she'd left during a mental health crisis and was now a danger to herself and others. He requested an emergency hearing to compel her return to appropriate care facilities. The legal aid lawyer called Lena at work. "This is bad. He's trying to get a judge to order you into psychiatric hold." Lena stepped into the alley behind the restaurant, heart hammering. "Can he do that?" "If he can prove you're a danger?" "Maybe. But his evidence is thin, just the old therapy records and some creative interpretation of events. Still, we need to respond fast. Can you come to the office tomorrow?" "I work tomorrow." "Lena, this is important. If we don't fight this, he might actually get a court order." She closed her eyes. "Okay, I'll be there." Rosa wasn't happy about Lena missing a shift, but she didn't ask questions. "You got trouble with the law?" "Trouble with my ex." "Same thing, usually." Rosa waved her off. "Go." "But you missed the Friday rush. You're fired." At the legal aid office, Lena and her lawyer, a young woman named Amy Tran, who looked like she survived on coffee and spite, strategized. "We need character witnesses," Amy said. "People who can testify you're stable, employed, not a danger to anyone." "I don't have people. I have Daniel and his daughter. That's it." "Daniel, the guy you're staying with?" "Yes." Amy made a note. "That's not ideal. Marcus's lawyers will paint it as you shacking up with some random guy you barely know." "He's not random. He helped me when I had nowhere else to go." "I believe you, but optics matter in court." Amy tapped her pen against her notepad. "What about your employer, this Rosa person? How long have you worked for her?" 3 weeks. Better than nothing. Anyone else? Old friends? Family?" Lena thought of her parents, dead in a car crash when she was 22. Her sister, who'd married a banker and moved to Singapore, who'd slowly stopped calling after Marcus made it clear he didn't approve of the relationship. No cousins, no close friends who hadn't been systematically cut out of her life. "No," she said finally. "There's no one else." Amy's expression softened. Okay, we work with what we have. I'll prep Rosa, prep Daniel. We'll build a narrative. You left an abusive marriage. You're rebuilding your life. You're employed and stable. The therapy records are inadmissible, and even if they weren't, seeking help isn't evidence of instability. When's the hearing? Next Thursday. Judge Harrison presiding. Amy grimaced. He's old school, not great for domestic cases, but he's fair, mostly. Lena left feeling like she'd been punched. 1 week to prepare for a hearing that could send her back to Marcus's control, back to the suffocating prison her life had become. That evening, she told Daniel everything. He listened without interrupting, his expression getting darker with each detail. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "They'll call me to testify?" he asked finally. "Probably, if you're willing." "Of course I'm willing. But Lena, they're going to come after me. They'll dig up every parking ticket, every late bill payment. They'll make me look like some creep who preys on vulnerable women." "I know, and if you don't want to—" "I didn't say that." His voice was firm. "I said they'll try. Doesn't mean they'll succeed." "Daniel, this could affect Emma. If Marcus's people start harassing you, showing up at your work, then we deal with it." He reached across the table, covered her hand with his. The touch was brief but solid. "I'm not backing out. You need someone in your corner, and I'm here. That's the end of it." Lena's throat tightened. "Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "Risking everything for someone you barely know." Daniel pulled his hand back, looked uncomfortable. "I know you well enough. And maybe—" He stopped himself. "What?" "Maybe I'm tired of playing it safe. After Sarah died, I shut down. Went through the motions. Work, Emma, repeat. Nothing risky. Nothing that could hurt. But that's not living. That's just existing." He met her eyes. "You walking through my door, that was terrifying. Still is. But it's also the first time in 3 years I've felt alive. So yeah, I'm taking the risk." The admission hung between them, charged with things neither was ready to name. Emma's voice drifted down from upstairs. "Dad, I need help with my math." The moment broke. Daniel stood. "I should—" "Yeah, go." He paused at the stairs. "We'll get through this. The hearing, all of it. You're not alone." "I know," Lena said, and for the first time, she actually believed it. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Amy coached Lena on how to testify, what to say, what not to say. Rosa agreed to appear as a character witness, grumbling about wasting her time but showing up anyway. Daniel spent an evening with Amy going over his testimony. When he came home, he looked exhausted. "They're going to paint me as a homewrecker," he told Lena. "Your husband's lawyers. They'll say I seduced you, manipulated you into leaving. That's ridiculous. Doesn't matter if it's ridiculous. It's a narrative that plays." He ran his hands through his hair. "Amy says to stick to facts. When you arrived, what condition you were in, how long you've been here. Don't speculate on your marriage. Don't defend you too hard. Just answer the questions." "I hate that you have to do this." "Yeah, well, little late to back out now." The night before the hearing, neither of them slept much. Lena lay on the pull-out couch, staring at the ceiling, running through Amy's coaching in her head. "Stay calm. Answer directly. Don't let them rattle you. Don't cry, no matter what they say." Around 2 a.m., she heard Daniel moving around upstairs. Then his footsteps on the stairs. "You awake?" he whispered. "Yeah." He sat on the edge of the couch, careful to keep distance between them. "I keep thinking about tomorrow. All the ways it could go wrong." "Me too." "You ready?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." "That's brave." Lena laughed softly. "It's not brave if you're terrified the whole time." "Sure it is. Brave is being scared and doing it anyway." He was quiet for a moment. "Sarah used to say that. When I was freaking out about something, money, fatherhood, whatever, she'd tell me courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action despite fear." She sounds like she was wise. She had her moments. He smiled in the darkness. "She would have liked you, I think. Would have told me to stop being an idiot and help you." "You're not an idiot. Jury's still out on that one." He stood. "Try to get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be rough." But after he left, Lena felt fractionally better, less alone in the dark. Morning came too fast. Daniel dropped Emma at Mrs. Chen's early. He'd told her he had an important meeting, which wasn't technically a lie. Emma had looked at both of them with knowing eyes, but hadn't pushed. The courthouse was downtown, a brutalist concrete building that looked designed to intimidate. Amy met them outside, carrying a briefcase that had seen better days. "Okay, ground rules," she said as they walked in. "Let me do the talking unless you're on the stand. Marcus will probably be here. Don't engage, don't even look at him if you can help it. His lawyers will try to provoke you. Stay calm." Inside, the hallway was packed with people waiting for their own hearings. Custody battles, evictions, small claims. Everyone looked worn down by the system. And then Lena saw him. Marcus stood near the courtroom doors, flanked by two lawyers in suits that probably cost more than Daniel's truck. He looked exactly as she remembered, tall, polished, handsome in a way that photographs well. When his eyes found hers, he smiled. Not warm, predatory. "Lena," he said, voice smooth, "you look tired. This whole thing must be so stressful for you." Amy stepped between them. "Mr. Carter, please don't speak to my client. I'm speaking to my wife." Marcus's smile didn't waver. "Lena, it's not too late. Come home. We can work this out privately without all this ugliness." "She's not going anywhere with you," Daniel said, voice hard. Marcus's attention shifted to Daniel for the first time, and Lena saw the calculation in his eyes. The assessment, the dismissal. "You must be the landscaper." Marcus made it sound like an insult. "I appreciate you providing temporary shelter for my wife during her episode. I'll make sure you're compensated for your trouble." "She's not a package you shipped to the wrong address," Daniel said. "No, she's my wife, who left during a mental health crisis. I'm simply trying to ensure she gets the help she needs." Marcus's tone was reasonable, concerned, perfect for any onlookers. One of his lawyers touched his arm. "Mr. Carter, we should go in." Marcus nodded, but his eyes stayed on Lena. "I'll see you inside. I'm looking forward to having a chance to clear all this up." He walked into the courtroom like he owned it. Maybe he did. "Ignore him," Amy said quietly. "That's what he wants, to get under your skin before you even testify." But Lena was already rattled. Seeing Marcus in person, hearing his voice, watching that calculated performance, it brought everything back. The fear, the second-guessing, the voice in her head that whispered, maybe he was right. Maybe she was unstable. Maybe she should just go back. Daniel must have seen something in her expression because he leaned close. "Hey, look at me." She did. "You're not going back there. Whatever happens in that courtroom, you walk out free. Got it?" Lena nodded, not trusting her voice. "All rise." They filed into the courtroom. Judge Harrison was exactly as Amy had described. Late 60s, white hair, the kind of face that had seen everything and been impressed by none of it. He looked tired before the hearing even started. Marcus's lead lawyer stood. His name was Richard Blackwell, and he had the kind of reputation that made other lawyers nervous. "Your Honor, we appreciate the court's time on this urgent matter. Our client, Mr. Marcus Carter, is here today out of deep concern for his wife's welfare." Amy countered immediately. "Your Honor, this is a transparent attempt to intimidate Ms. Carter into abandoning her divorce petition. There is no emergency, no crisis, just a woman exercising her legal right to leave an abusive marriage." "Alleged abuse," Blackwell interjected smoothly, "which Ms. Carter has provided zero evidence for. What we have is documented mental health struggles, erratic behavior, and abandonment of the marital home without notice." Judge Harrison held up a hand. "I've read the motions. Let's hear from Ms. Carter directly. Ms. Carter, please take the stand." Lena stood on shaking legs. The bailiff swore her in, and she sat, hands folded in her lap to hide the trembling. Blackwell approached like a shark scenting blood. "Ms. Carter, when did you leave your husband?" "October 15th. "And you didn't tell him you were leaving?" "No." "Didn't leave a note? Call? Text?" "No." "You simply vanished in the middle of the night, leaving your husband frantic with worry?" Amy objected. "Argumentative." "Sustained," Judge Harrison said. "Mr. Blackwell, ask your questions without editorial." Blackwell smiled thinly. "Ms. Carter, where did you go when you left?" "To a friend's house." "Which friend?" Lena hesitated. "Daniel Hayes? And how long had you known Mr. Hayes at that point?" "I'd just met him." Blackwell's eyebrows rose theatrically. You fled to the home of a man you'd just met? A stranger? I needed help. He provided it. How convenient. Blackwell consulted his notes. Ms. Carter, isn't it true you've been diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and borderline personality disorder? Objection, Amy said. Medical records are... I'm asking about her personal knowledge of her diagnoses, Your Honor. Judge Harrison frowned. I'll allow it, but tread carefully, Mr. Blackwell. Lena forced herself to stay calm. I saw a therapist my husband chose. That therapist diagnosed me with various conditions, yes. But those diagnoses were, yes or no, please. Yes. And isn't it true that one symptom of borderline personality disorder is impulsive behavior? Unstable relationships? Difficulty with reality? Amy was on her feet. Your Honor, this is... Mr. Blackwell, Judge Harrison interrupted. I'm not here to diagnose Ms. Carter. Get to your point. My point, Your Honor, is that Ms. Carter has documented mental health issues, left her home impulsively during what appears to be a crisis, and immediately attached herself to a strange man. This is concerning behavior that suggests she may not be capable of making sound decisions about her own welfare. The courtroom felt like it was closing in. Lena gripped the armrests of the witness chair, fighting to stay present, to not let Blackwell's words convince her he was right. Ms. Carter, Blackwell continued, did you take any property when you left? Jewelry, cash, personal items? Just my purse. Nothing else? No. Interesting, because my client reports that several valuable items are missing. A Rolex watch, diamond earrings, approximately $5,000 in cash. I didn't take any of that. So you're saying my client is lying? I'm saying I didn't take those things. Blackwell smiled like he'd won something. No further questions, Your Honor. Amy stood for redirect, trying to repair the damage, but Lena could barely focus. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to sit on them. Then it was Daniel's turn on the stand. Blackwell circled him like prey. Mr. Hayes, what do you do for a living? I'm a landscaper. And you live alone with your daughter? Yes. So when a strange woman appeared at your door in the middle of the night, your first instinct was to invite her in? Into the home you share with your young child? Daniel's jaw tightened. She needed help. How noble. And she's been living with you ever since? Yes. Sleeping on your couch? Yes. In close quarters with you and your 7-year-old daughter? It's not like that. What's it like, Mr. Hayes? You take in a married woman you don't know, let her into your home, your life. What exactly is the nature of your relationship with Ms. Carter? Objection, Amy said. Relevance? Your Honor, the nature of Ms. Carter's current living situation is absolutely relevant to whether she's in a stable environment. Judge Harrison nodded. I'll allow it. Daniel met Blackwell's eyes steadily. I'm helping someone who needed it. That's it. So there's nothing romantic between you? No? Nothing physical? No? And yet you're willing to testify on her behalf, to involve yourself in this messy divorce, to potentially put your own daughter at risk of being dragged into this situation. My daughter isn't at risk. Isn't she, when Ms. Carter's husband's people start investigating you? When they look into every aspect of your life? Your finances, your parenting, your deceased wife's accident? Daniel's hands clenched. You leave Sarah out of this. Touchy subject. Blackwell raised an eyebrow. Mr. Hayes, isn't it true you've struggled financially since your wife's death? Late payments, maxed credit cards barely making ends meet? What's your point? My point is that taking in Ms. Carter, a woman fleeing a very wealthy man, might seem like an opportunity. The implication hung in the air. Daniel's face went red. I'm not after her money. I'm not after anything. I'm just trying to help. So you say. Blackwell turned to the judge. No further questions. When they broke for lunch, Daniel looked like he wanted to punch something. Lena felt numb. That was rough, Amy admitted over sandwiches in a conference room. But we expected it. They're trying to paint you both as unstable, opportunistic, not credible. Is it working? Lena asked quietly. Hard to say. Harrison's hard to read. Amy checked her notes. Rosa's up after lunch. She's solid. Then we rest our case and wait for Harrison's ruling. How long? Could be today, could be next week. Depends on his mood. The afternoon session went slightly better. Rosa testified that Lena was a good worker, reliable, showed no signs of instability or crisis. Blackwell tried to shake her, but Rosa wasn't having it. Look, I don't know nothing about her marriage, Rosa said bluntly. What I know is she shows up on time, works hard, don't cause problems. That's more than I can say for most people. When both sides rested, Judge Harrison leaned back in his chair, looking at the ceiling like it might have answers. I've heard enough, he said finally. Mr. Blackwell, your client's concerns are noted, but I'm not convinced Ms. Carter poses any danger to herself or others. She's employed, she has stable housing, and there's no evidence of acute mental health crisis. Lena's heart leaped. However, Harrison continued, and the hope deflated, I'm also not comfortable with the current living arrangement. Ms. Carter living with Mr. Hayes in close quarters does raise questions about propriety and stability. Your Honor, Amy started. I'm not finished. Here's my ruling. I'm denying Mr. Carter's motion for psychiatric hold. Ms. Carter is a competent adult entitled to make her own decisions. But I'm ordering a follow-up hearing in 30 days. At that time, I expect to see evidence that Ms. Carter has secured independent housing and continued employment. If she can demonstrate stability, we'll proceed with the divorce proceedings. If not, I'll revisit Mr. Carter's concerns. He banged his gavel. We're adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Marcus caught up to them. 30 days, Lena, he said quietly. That's all you have. And when you can't find housing, when you run out of money, when this whole charade falls apart, I'll be waiting. She's not coming back to you, Daniel said. Marcus finally looked at him, really looked, and there was something cold in his eyes. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into, Mr. Hayes, but you will. Soon. He walked away, his lawyers trailing behind like remoras. Amy touched Lena's arm. We won, mostly. But he's right about one thing. You need your own place. 30 days isn't much time. I know, Lena said. But inside she was already calculating. Her paychecks from Rosa, the few hundred she'd saved. It wasn't enough for first and last month's rent. Not even close. In the truck, Daniel was quiet. Finally he said, We'll figure out the housing thing. How? I don't have the money, and nobody's going to rent to someone with no credit history, no references. There's got to be something. A room somewhere, a studio. In Seattle? With what I make? Lena laughed bitterly. I'd need 3 jobs just to afford a closet. They drove in silence. The victory felt hollow. They'd won the battle, but the war was far from over. That night, Emma asked why everyone looked so sad. Long day, sweetheart, Daniel said. Did the meeting go bad? Not bad, just complicated. Emma studied them both with those 2 old eyes. Lena's not leaving, is she? No, baby. I'm not leaving, Lena said, hoping it was true. But later, lying in the dark, she wondered how long she could keep that promise. The search for housing became Lena's obsession. Every spare moment between shifts at Casa Verde, she scrolled through rental listings on her cheap phone, calling numbers that either didn't answer or laughed when she explained her situation. No credit history, no references beyond a landscaper and a restaurant owner, no previous rental history she could prove. On paper, she was nobody, exactly what Marcus had designed. There's a room in Renton, she told Daniel one evening, showing him a listing. $300 a week, shared bathroom. Daniel looked at the address and shook his head. That's not a room, that's a trap house. You're not going there. I don't have a lot of options. Then we make more options. But making options required resources they didn't have. Daniel had quietly asked around his crew, put out feelers, but most places wanted first, last, deposit, easily $3,000 Lena didn't possess. 2 weeks after the hearing, Marcus made his next move. Daniel came home to find a black town car parked across the street. A man in a dark suit sat inside, watching the house. Not hiding, not pretending, just watching. The hell is this? Daniel muttered, grabbing his phone. Before he could call anyone, the man got out of the car. Middle-aged, unremarkable face, the kind of person who disappeared in crowds. He held up his hands in a peaceful gesture as he approached. Mr. Hayes? I'm not here to cause trouble. Then why are you here? I work for Mr. Carter. He asked me to deliver a message. The man pulled an envelope from his jacket, held it out. He's willing to make this all go away. The divorce, the legal fees, everything. Ms. Carter gets a generous settlement, enough to start over anywhere she wants. All she has to do is sign a non-disclosure agreement and drop the abuse allegations. Daniel didn't take the envelope. She's not making abuse allegations. Not yet, but Mr. Carter wants to ensure she doesn't. This offer is good for 48 hours. After that, things get more complicated. That a threat? The man's expression didn't change. It's a reality check. You're a single father, Mr. Hayes. You have a daughter to think about, a job that requires you to enter private property. It would be unfortunate if questions were raised about your background checks. If clients started to worry about who they're letting into their homes. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. Get off my property. Just delivering a message. The man set the envelope on the porch railing. 48 hours. Think about it. Think about what's best for your family. He walked back to the car and drove away. Daniel stared at the envelope like it was radioactive. Inside, Lena was helping Emma with a book report. She looked up when Daniel came in, saw his expression. What happened? Not now. He nodded toward Emma. Later, after Emma was asleep, he showed Lena the envelope. Inside was a check for $250,000 made out to Lena Carter and a 10-page non-disclosure agreement. Lena read through it with shaking hands. The terms were clear. She got the money, Marcus got his reputation intact. She could never speak about their marriage, never write about it, never even imply abuse occurred. If she violated the NDA, she'd owe 10 times the settlement amount. $250,000, she said quietly. That's more money than I've ever seen. It's a gag order, Daniel said. He's buying your silence. I know. She set down the papers. But with this money, I could get my own place. Pay Amy's fees, start over properly. Isn't that what we wanted? Not like this. Why not? Lena's voice rose. Because it's his money? Because it feels like giving up? Daniel, I'm exhausted. I'm tired of fighting, tired of being scared, tired of dragging you and Emma into my mess. This could end it. Clean break. You really believe that he'd just let you walk away? He'd have to. It's a legal contract. Daniel laughed without humor. Lena, the man sent someone to threaten my livelihood. You think he plays by rules? Then what do I do? Keep working for minimum wage, hoping I scrape together enough for some dump that'll barely pass inspection? Keep putting you at risk? She was crying now, frustrated tears. I don't have good choices here. I have bad and worse. Daniel pulled her into a hug before he could think better of it. She stiffened, then collapsed against him, shaking. We'll figure something out, he said into her hair. But signing this, it's not the answer. Trust me. She wanted to believe there was another way. But the check sat on the table between them like a taunt, representing safety and security she desperately needed. The next morning, Lena called Amy. He's trying to buy you off, Amy said bluntly. Classic move. Offer just enough money to make the fight seem not worth it. It's a lot of money, Amy. I could actually survive on that. For how long? A year? 2? Then what? Meanwhile, he gets to tell everyone his wife was crazy and greedy, took his money and ran. He wins the narrative. You disappear into obscurity. That what you want? Lena didn't answer. Amy's voice softened. Look, I get it. This is hard. You're tired. But if you take this money, you're letting him define your story. And that story will follow you forever. After she hung up, Lena sat in the quiet house. Daniel had taken Emma to school, gone to work. She was alone with her thoughts and the check on the table. She picked it up. $250,000. She could go anywhere, do anything, be free. Except she wouldn't be free. She'd just be bought. Lena tore up the check. When Daniel got home that evening, she showed him the pieces in the trash. You sure? He asked. No, but I did it anyway. He smiled, and something in his expression made Lena's heart skip. Okay then, Plan B. What's Plan B? No idea, but we'll figure it out. 2 days later, Marcus's response came in the form of an article. Not in the mainstream press, he was too smart for that. But in a high society blog that covered Seattle's wealthy elite, there was a piece about Marcus Carter's charitable work, his commitment to mental health advocacy, his personal tragedy of a wife suffering from severe mental illness who'd abandoned their marriage during a psychotic break. The article named no names, but anyone who knew Marcus would recognize the story, and the comments section was brutal. People praising Marcus for his patience, expressing sympathy for what he was going through, condemning that woman for her ingratitude. Lena read it in the Casa Verde break room and felt sick. "You okay?" Rosa asked, noticing her expression. "No." Lena showed her the article. Rosa read it, her face darkening. "This your ex?" "Yeah." "He's a piece of work." Rosa handed back the phone. "But you know what? People who read this garbage, they don't matter. They don't know you. They don't know the truth." "The truth doesn't seem to matter much." "Maybe not to them, but it matters to you, and to the people who actually know you." Rosa squeezed her shoulder. "Keep your head up. Don't let him win by making you give up." The words helped a little, but that night, lying on the pull-out couch, Lena felt the weight of it all crushing down. Marcus was winning. He'd poisoned the narrative, isolated her, made sure she looked unstable and desperate, and she was running out of time to prove otherwise. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Daniel's crew chief, a gruff man named Tom who'd worked landscaping for 30 years, pulled Daniel aside one morning. "Heard you got a friend in a tough spot. Housing situation." Daniel was immediately wary. "Maybe. My sister owns a duplex in Beacon Hill. Tenant just moved out. She's looking for someone reliable, doesn't care about credit so much as character. Rents $850 a month." Daniel's eyes widened. "That's below market." "Yeah, well, the place needs work. Hasn't been updated since the 90s. Pipes are temperamental. Heater's on its last legs. But it's clean and it's legal." Tom shrugged. "I vouched for you. Told my sister you were good people. If your friend's interested, she can call." Daniel could have kissed him. "Tom, thank you." "Don't thank me yet. Place is a project. But it's something." That evening, Daniel told Lena. She called Tom's sister immediately, scheduled a viewing for the next day. The duplex was exactly as advertised, dated, worn, in need of TLC. The kitchen had avocado green appliances. The bathroom tile was cracked. The living room carpet was mystery-stained. But it had good bones, functional plumbing, and most importantly, it was hers if she wanted it. Tom's sister, a no-nonsense woman named Diane, looked Lena over critically. "Tom says you're good people. That true?" "I'd like to think so." "You got first month's rent?" Lena had been saving every penny. "I have $600. I can get the rest in 2 weeks." "Fine. You can move in now, pay the rest when you have it, but you're responsible for minor repairs. Anything breaks, you fix it or hire someone. I'm not running a charity." "I understand. One more thing." Diane's expression hardened. "I looked you up, saw the stuff online about your husband, the legal mess. I don't care about your personal life, but I don't want drama at my property. No police calls, no incidents, no nonsense. We clear?" "Crystal clear." "Good. You want it?" Lena looked around the shabby little duplex. It wasn't much, but it was hers. "Yes." She moved in 3 days later. Daniel helped haul her few possessions, clothes from Goodwill, some kitchen supplies Rosa had donated, a sleeping bag Daniel insisted she take until she could afford a proper bed. Emma came too, excited to see Lena's new house. "It's tiny," Emma observed, not unkindly. "It's perfect," Lena corrected. After Daniel and Emma left, Lena stood in the empty living room and cried. Relief, fear, exhaustion, everything she'd been holding back for weeks poured out. She slid down the wall and sat on the stained carpet, sobbing into her hands. She had her own place. She'd done it. It didn't matter that it was falling apart, that she couldn't afford furniture, that she'd be sleeping on the floor. It was hers. The next hurdle was the follow-up hearing, now just 10 days away. Amy filed updated documentation, proof of Lena's employment, her lease agreement, bank statements showing steady if modest income, building the case that Lena was stable, independent, capable. But Marcus wasn't idle either. His lawyers filed a motion claiming Lena had manipulated Tom's sister into providing below-market housing, suggesting Daniel had pressured his employer to help. They painted it as proof of Lena's inability to function independently. "They're really reaching," Amy said over the phone. "But we'll address it at the hearing. Just keep doing what you're doing. Show up to work, pay your bills, live your life." Easier said than done. The surveillance increased, cars parked outside the duplex. outside Casa Verde, outside Emma's school. Always just watching, never quite crossing the line into harassment, but making their presence known. Daniel started varying his routes home, checking for tails. He'd catch Emma staring at the strange cars with worried eyes. "Are those bad guys?" she asked one evening. "No, sweetheart, just annoying guys. They're watching Lena, aren't they? Because of her mean husband." Daniel hated that Emma knew any of this. "Yeah, that's not fair." "No, it's not." Emma was quiet for a moment. "Dad, what happens if the judge says Lena has to go back?" "That's not going to happen." "But what if it does?" Daniel pulled her close. "Then we deal with it. But I don't think it will. Lena's strong. She's fighting hard, and we're helping her." "Good." Emma hugged him tight. "I like Lena. I don't want her to go away." "Me neither, kiddo." And there it was. The truth Daniel had been avoiding. Somewhere between the late-night conversations and shared dinners and quiet moments of understanding, he'd fallen for Lena. Not the surface attraction, though she was beautiful even worn down by stress, but the person underneath, her strength, her refusal to give up despite every reason to, the way she'd rebuilt herself piece by piece from nothing. He hadn't felt this way since Sarah, hadn't wanted to, but there it was, and it terrified him. 5 days before the hearing, Lena was closing at Casa Verde when a woman came in just before the kitchen shut down. Well-dressed, professional, carrying herself with the kind of confidence that came from money. "I'm sorry, we're closed," Lena said. "I'm not here for food." The woman sat at the bar anyway. "I'm here to talk to you. My name is Patricia Donovan. I'm a divorce attorney." Lena tensed. "I already have a lawyer." "I know. Amy Tran. She's very dedicated, but she's also drowning in cases and working with no resources." Patricia slid a business card across the bar. "I'd like to take your case. Pro bono." "Why?" "Because I know Marcus Carter. I went to law school with him before he decided business was more profitable. I know what he's capable of." Patricia's expression was hard. "And I've seen what happens to women who try to leave men like him. The system favors money and power. But sometimes, if you fight smart and fight hard, you can win anyway." "I can't afford you." "I said pro bono, no charge. I take cases like yours to balance the scales of all the corporate work I do." She leaned forward. "Lena, Amy's great, but she doesn't have the resources to fight Blackwell. I do. I have investigators, expert witnesses, connections in the family court system. I can match Marcus move for move." It sounded too good to be true. "What's the catch?" "No catch, except that I fight to win, and winning means going after Marcus hard, exposing what he did, getting it on the record, making sure he can't do it to anyone else. You'd have to be willing to stand up in court and tell everything. No settling, no quiet exit. A real fight." Lena thought about the NDA she'd torn up, the check she'd destroyed, the part of her that just wanted it to be over. "I need to think about it," she said. "You have until Monday. After that, I'm withdrawing the offer. I only represent clients who are ready to fight." Patricia stood. "Talk to Amy. Get her perspective. But decide fast." After she left, Rosa came out from the kitchen. "Who was that?" "A lawyer. Says she wants to take my case for free." "Sounds fishy." "That's what I thought." But Lena looked at the business card, Patricia Donovan, partner at one of Seattle's most prestigious firms. "Maybe it's not." She called Amy that night. There was a long pause when she mentioned Patricia's offer. "Patricia Donovan wants your case?" "You know her?" "Know of her. She's a shark. Expensive, ruthless, wins most of her cases." Amy was quiet. "If she's offering pro bono, you should take it." "But what about you?" "Lena, I'm good at what I do, but I'm realistic. Going up against Blackwell with my caseload and budget? We'd probably lose, but Patricia, she can actually win this." Amy's voice was warm despite the professional disappointment. "Take the offer. I'll transfer everything to her office." "I feel like I'm abandoning you." "You're not. You're making the smart play. That's what I've been trying to teach you. Don't let pride or loyalty get in the way of winning." Monday morning, Lena called Patricia's office. "I'm ready to fight," she said when Patricia answered. "Good. Come in tomorrow. We have a lot of work to do before Friday's hearing." The next 3 days were a whirlwind. Patricia's office was everything Amy's wasn't. sleek, modern, staffed with assistants and paralegals who moved with efficient purpose. Patricia herself was all business, drilling Lena on every detail of her marriage, taking notes, recording statements. "The therapy records," Patricia said. "Marcus's lawyer forged your consent to release them. That's an ethics violation. We can get him sanctioned, possibly disbarred. Will that help my case?" "It'll help destroy his credibility. If his lawyer's willing to forge documents, what else is he lying about?" Patricia smiled. It wasn't warm. "I'm going to tear their case apart piece by piece." She also had news about the theft allegations. "I hired an investigator. Your husband's Rolex? He sold it 6 months ago to cover gambling debts. The diamond earrings were never purchased. No record of sale anywhere. The cash from the safe? Bank records show he withdrew it himself the day after you left. He's been manufacturing evidence." Lena felt vindicated and sick. "He framed me. He tried. But now we have proof he lied. That changes everything." Friday arrived too fast. The courtroom was the same, but the atmosphere was different. Patricia commanded the space in a way Amy, bless her, never could. She wore a power suit that probably cost more than Lena's monthly rent and carried herself like she owned the room. Marcus noticed the change immediately. When he saw Patricia, his expression flickered. Surprise, then calculation. Judge Harrison called the court to order. "Ms. Donovan, this is unexpected." "Your Honor, I've taken over representation of Ms. Carter. I filed notice with the court yesterday." "I saw. Quite a step up for Ms. Carter." Harrison's tone was dry. "Let's proceed. Mr. Blackwell, I assume you've reviewed the updated filings." Blackwell stood, and for the first time he looked slightly unsettled. "We have, Your Honor, though we question the timing and motivation of Ms. Donovan's involvement. Question all you want in your closing. For now, let's stick to facts. Ms. Donovan, your client has secured independent housing?" "She has, Your Honor. She's been residing at her own apartment for 2 weeks, paying rent through her employment at Casa Verde restaurant. She's been completely self-sufficient." "And yet," Blackwell interjected, "this apartment was secured through connections provided by Mr. Hayes, suggesting continued improper relationship, suggesting," Patricia cut him off smoothly, "that Ms. Carter has built a support network of people willing to vouch for her character. Unlike Mr. Carter, who seems to have surrounded himself with people willing to lie on his behalf." Blackwell's face reddened. "That's a serious accusation, based on serious evidence." Patricia submitted a folder to the bailiff. "Your Honor, we have documentation proving Mr. Carter's theft allegations are fabricated. The Rolex in question was sold by Mr. Carter himself. The cash was withdrawn by him after Ms. Carter left, and the diamond earrings were never purchased at all." The courtroom went silent. Judge Harrison flipped through the documents, his expression darkening. "Mr. Blackwell, did you verify these theft allegations before filing?" "We relied on our client's sworn statements." "Your client lied." Harrison's voice was sharp. "Either that, or he's remarkably confused about his own property." "Which is it?" Marcus leaned forward, whispering urgently to Blackwell. Blackwell looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "Your Honor, there may have been some miscommunication." "Miscommunication." Harrison set down the papers. "Ms. Donovan, anything else?" "The therapy records Mr. Blackwell submitted. We have proof the release authorization was forged. Ms. Carter never consented to their disclosure." "Your Honor," Blackwell sputtered, "those records were provided by the therapist." "Using a forged authorization. That's a crime, Mr. Blackwell." Harrison looked at Marcus. "Mr. Carter, I'm going to ask you directly. Did you authorize the release of your wife's medical records without her consent?" Marcus stood. Even now he maintained that polished composure. "Your Honor, I was concerned for my wife's welfare. I may have signed some documents on her behalf, but only out of—" "Save it." Harrison's patience had evaporated. "Mr. Carter, you've wasted this court's time with false allegations, manufactured evidence, and illegal document releases. I'm sanctioning you personally $25,000, payable to the court. Mr. Blackwell, you're getting off with a warning, but if I ever see this kind of sloppy work from you again, we'll revisit your bar status." Blackwell sat down hard. Marcus's composure finally cracked, his jaw clenching. "As for the matter at hand," Harrison continued, "Ms. Carter has clearly demonstrated stability and independence. The divorce will proceed. I'm setting a trial date for 90 days from now to settle asset division and finalize dissolution. Until then, both parties are to maintain no contact. Mr. Carter, if I hear you've been harassing Ms. Carter or anyone associated with her, I'll hold you in contempt. Are we clear? Yes, Your Honor, Marcus said, voice tight. Good. We're adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Lena could barely breathe. They'd won. Not the whole war, but this battle decisively. Patricia shook her hand firmly. Trial in 90 days. We'll discuss strategy next week, but for now, you did good. Stay strong. After she left, Daniel pulled Lena into a hug right there on the courthouse steps. She didn't care who saw. We did it, she whispered. You did it. When they pulled apart, both their eyes were wet. And in that moment, surrounded by the chaos of downtown Seattle, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The victory high lasted exactly 3 days before reality reasserted itself. Lena stood in her duplex kitchen trying to figure out why the sink was leaking and whether she could fix it herself or needed to call Diane. The avocado green stove worked intermittently. The heating rattled like it was dying, but it was hers, and that meant everything. She'd picked up extra shifts at Casa Verde to build up savings for the trial. Patricia had assured her the pro bono arrangement covered everything, but Lena wanted a cushion, wanted to never feel helpless again. You look exhausted, Rosa said one evening, watching Lena nearly slice her thumb along with the onions. I'm fine. You're running on fumes. When's the last time you slept a full night? Lena couldn't remember. Between work, meetings with Patricia, and lying awake worrying about the trial, sleep had become theoretical. Take tomorrow off, Rosa said. It wasn't a suggestion. You can't afford to collapse in my kitchen either. Take the day. Rest. Come back when you're human again. The forced day off felt strange. Lena cleaned her apartment, fixed the leaky sink with a YouTube tutorial and a wrench borrowed from Diane's toolbox, then sat on her sleeping bag with nothing to do. The silence was oppressive. Her phone rang. Daniel. You busy? He asked. Aggressively doing nothing. Rosa kicked me out. Good. Come over for dinner. Emma's been asking about you. Lena hesitated. Since moving out, she'd kept some distance from Daniel's house. Not because she wanted to, but because she needed to prove, to the court, to herself, that she could stand alone. But the thought of another night by herself in the duplex made her chest tight. Okay, what time? Now works. I'm attempting lasagna. It's going poorly. She laughed despite herself. I'll be right there. Daniel's house felt like coming home. Emma launched herself at Lena the second she walked in, chattering about school and her upcoming winter concert, and could Lena please come watch her be a snowflake? I wouldn't miss it, Lena promised. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. The lasagna was indeed a disaster. Undercooked noodles, too much sauce, but they ate it anyway, laughing about Daniel's culinary failures. Emma told elaborate stories about her classmates. The conversation flowed easy, comfortable, real. After Emma went to bed, Daniel and Lena ended up on the back porch again, their familiar spot. The November air was sharp and cold, their breath fogging. 90 days feels like forever, Lena said quietly, and also like tomorrow. You ready for it? I don't know. Patricia's building a strong case, but Marcus, he's not going down easy. She warned me he'll try everything to avoid losing in court. Delay tactics, settlement offers, character assassination. You've survived this long. Barely. Lena pulled her borrowed jacket tighter. Some days I wake up and I can't believe I actually left. That I'm fighting back. Other days I want to give up, take whatever scraps he's willing to throw me, and disappear. But you don't. But I don't. She looked at him. Because I have people who won't let me. You, Emma, Rosa, even Patricia in her terrifying lawyer way. I'm not alone anymore. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Lena, after the trial, when this is over, what do you want? The question caught her off guard. What do you mean? I mean, you'll be free, divorced. You could go anywhere, do anything. What do you actually want? She'd been so focused on surviving, on getting through each day, that she hadn't let herself think beyond the trial. I don't know. I haven't let myself think that far. Think about it now. Lena considered. What did she want? Not the life she'd had with Marcus, that was certain. But what did freedom actually look like? I want to take pictures again, she said slowly. Real photography, not just phone snapshots. I want to rebuild that part of myself Marcus took away. And I want... She stopped, unsure if she should say it. What? I want to stay here, in Seattle, near the people who helped me. She met his eyes. Near you and Emma, if that's okay. The air between them shifted, charged with everything they'd been carefully not saying for months. That's more than okay, Daniel said quietly. Before either could say more, his phone rang. He checked it, frowned. It's Tom. Give me a second. He stepped inside. Through the window, Lena watched his expression change from confused to angry. When he came back out, his jaw was tight. What happened? Someone filed a complaint against me. Anonymous tip that I'm working jobs without proper licensing, falsifying background checks. The city's launching an investigation. Lena's stomach dropped. Marcus. Probably can't prove it, but yeah, almost certainly. Daniel rubbed his face. Tom says I'm suspended pending the investigation. Could take weeks. Daniel, I'm so sorry. Don't. This isn't your fault. It absolutely is. He's punishing you for helping me. So what? I'm supposed to regret it? Daniel's voice was firm. I don't. I'd do it again, but I need to figure out how to pay bills while this gets sorted. The guilt was crushing. Every bad thing happening to Daniel traced back to that night she'd knocked on his door. She'd brought chaos into his stable life, put his livelihood at risk, endangered Emma's security. I can help, she said. I have some savings. I'm not taking your money. Daniel, no, you're building your own life. I'll figure this out. But he looked tired, beaten down in a way Lena hadn't seen before. She went home that night feeling sick. Lay on her sleeping bag, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Javier's cousin who'd disappeared to California. Maybe that was the answer. Maybe the only way to stop Marcus from destroying everyone around her was to vanish. But even as she thought it, she knew she couldn't. Running was what the old Lena would have done. The one Marcus had molded into someone small and scared. The new Lena, the one Daniel and Rosa and Emma had helped build, didn't run. She fought. The next morning, Lena called Patricia. Marcus is going after Daniel, filed a complaint about his business licensing. Patricia was quiet for a moment. That's harassment. But proving Marcus is behind it will be hard. So we let him get away with it? I didn't say that. Let me make some calls. Patricia paused. Lena, you need to prepare yourself. The closer we get to trial, the nastier this will get. Marcus is desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. Like what? Like anything that might work. 2 days later, the anything revealed itself. A process server appeared at Casa Verde with a new motion. Marcus was now claiming Lena had been having an affair with Daniel during their marriage. He had evidence of messages, photos, witnesses placing them together. All lies. But detailed, convincing lies. This is insane, Lena told Patricia over the phone. I met Daniel the night I left. There was no affair. I know, but he's trying to shift the narrative. Make you look like the unfaithful one. Make your abuse claim seem like justification for infidelity. Patricia's voice was tight with anger. We'll destroy this in court, but it's going to be ugly. He's going to drag Daniel through the mud. When Lena told Daniel, he went very still. He's claiming we were together before you left? Yes, with fake evidence, photos that are probably edited, messages I never sent. Patricia says it won't hold up, but it'll be public, in court documents. People will believe it. Daniel stood, paced the kitchen. Emma's going to hear about this. Kids at school, other parents. They'll think, I know, I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. Daniel's voice cracked. None of this is your fault. You didn't make Marcus into a vindictive bastard. You didn't ask for any of this. But I brought it to your door, and I opened the door. That was my choice. But he stopped pacing, faced her. Lena, I don't regret helping you, but I'm scared. Not for me. I can handle whatever reputation damage comes my way. But Emma? She doesn't deserve this. No, she doesn't. Lena felt tears building. Maybe I should withdraw, drop the divorce, take a settlement. Make this go away before he hurts anyone else. That what you want? No. But what I want doesn't matter if it's hurting the people I care about. Daniel crossed to her, took her shoulders gently. Listen to me. You matter. Your freedom matters. And Emma, she's tougher than you think. She'll be okay. We'll all be okay. But only if you don't give up now. How can you be so sure? Because I've already lost everything once. When Sarah died, I thought that was it. End of my life as I knew it. But I survived. Built something new. If we have to do that again, if Marcus burns everything down, we'll survive that too. His certainty steadied her. Lena leaned into him, letting herself take comfort for a moment before pulling back. Okay, she said, we fight. The investigation into Daniel's business took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of stress, of lawyers, of Daniel taking odd jobs for cash while the official suspension held. But in the end, the city found nothing. The complaint was dismissed as baseless, likely filed by someone with a grudge. They both knew who that someone was. Marcus's affair allegations lasted slightly longer, until Patricia's investigator tracked down the witnesses Marcus claimed could place Lena and Daniel Tizadaso. One was a security guard who'd never worked at the building, he claimed. Another was a woman who didn't exist, fake name, fake address, fake everything. The photos were also exposed as manipulated. Crude Photoshop jobs that fell apart under expert analysis. Patricia filed a motion for sanctions, demanding Marcus be held in contempt for presenting fabricated evidence. The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks before the trial. He's panicking, Patricia said with satisfaction. Making sloppy mistakes. That's good for us. But Marcus had one more card to play. 2 days before the sanctions hearing, Emma's school called. There had been an incident. A man claiming to be conducting a child welfare check had tried to pull Emma from class for questioning. The school, to their credit, had refused and called Daniel immediately. But Emma was shaken, crying in the principal's office when Daniel arrived. A man with a badge, the principal explained, said he was investigating the home environment, but when we asked for credentials, he left quickly. We've called the police. Daniel held Emma, who was sobbing, into his shoulder. You're okay, sweetheart. You're safe. He knew my name, Emma hiccuped. He knew about Lena. He said you were in trouble and he needed to ask me questions. Rage flooded Daniel, white-hot and consuming. He called Patricia immediately. Get a restraining order, she said. Now. This crosses every line. That evening, with Emma finally asleep after hours of reassurance, Daniel and Lena sat in his living room. The fear had transformed into something harder, sharper. He went after my daughter, Daniel said quietly. My 7-year-old daughter, that's it. I'm testifying. I'm going to tell that judge exactly what Marcus Carter is. Daniel, no. I was trying to stay out of the spotlight, keep Emma protected, but he brought her into this, so now I'm all in. His hands were shaking with suppressed fury. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of man he is. The restraining order hearing happened fast. Patricia presented evidence. The school incident, the surveillance, the harassment. Judge Harrison, already frustrated with Marcus's behavior, granted a temporary restraining order on the spot. Mr. Carter, you are to have no contact with Miss Carter, Mr. Hayes, or Mr. Hayes's minor daughter. No direct contact, no intermediaries, no surveillance. If I hear you violated this order, you'll be arrested. Do you understand? Marcus's new lawyer, Blackwell, had withdrawn after the forgery scandal, nodded stiffly. Yes, Your Honor. But Marcus himself looked unconcerned, like this was all beneath him, like he was still certain he'd win. The trial date arrived, January 15th. The courtroom was packed, not with spectators, but with lawyers, documents, evidence boxes. This wasn't a quick hearing, this was the main event. Patricia was in her element. Over 3 days, she systematically destroyed Marcus's case. She presented financial records showing Marcus had controlled every dollar, every account. Medical records documenting injuries Lena had sustained accidentally, testimony from the therapist Marcus had paid, who admitted under oath that the diagnoses were influenced by Marcus's version of events. She called Daniel to the stand. He testified about the night Lena arrived. Her condition, terrified, bruised, desperate. How she'd rebuilt her life from nothing. How Marcus had tried to destroy anyone who helped her. And the affair allegations? Patricia asked. Complete fiction. I met Lena the night she left her husband. There was nothing romantic between us at that time or for months after. We were friends. I was helping someone in need. At that time. Patricia's question was pointed. What about now? Daniel glanced at Lena. Now, yes, I care about her. But that happened after she'd left Marcus, after she'd started rebuilding. Not before, not during their marriage. It was the first time either had acknowledged it publicly. Lena felt heat rise in her face. Marcus's lawyer tried to shake Daniel's testimony, but he held firm, calm, honest, unbreakable. Then Lena took the stand. For 2 hours, she told her story. The isolation, the control, the bruises, the psychiatric commitment threat. Patricia guided her through it, letting Lena's words speak for themselves. Why didn't you leave sooner? Marcus's lawyer asked on cross-examination. Because I was scared. Because he'd convinced me I was nothing without him. Because every time I tried, he found a way to pull me back. Lena met Marcus's eyes across the courtroom. But I'm not scared anymore. And I'm not nothing. I'm someone who survived, who's building a life on my own terms. And he can't take that from me. The lawyer had no response to that. On the final day, closing arguments, Patricia was devastating. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. This was not a marriage, it was a prison. Mr. Carter systematically isolated Miss Carter, controlled her finances, monitored her movements, and when she dared to leave, he did everything in his power to destroy her. He lied to this court. He manufactured evidence. He harassed witnesses. He even targeted a 7-year-old child. This is not the behavior of a man seeking reconciliation. This is the behavior of a man who views his wife as property. Marcus's lawyer tried to salvage it, painting Lena as opportunistic, claiming the evidence of abuse was exaggerated, but even he seemed to know it was over. Judge Harrison took a 15-minute recess, then returned. I've reviewed all the evidence and testimony. Mr. Carter, I find your behavior throughout this proceeding to be reprehensible. You've lied to this court, manipulated evidence, and engaged in witness harassment. The marriage is dissolved effective immediately. As for asset division, Ms. Carter is entitled to 50% of all marital assets accumulated during the marriage. Additionally, I'm awarding her $200,000 for emotional distress and legal fees incurred due to Mr. Carter's conduct. The restraining order is made permanent. Mr. Carter, if you violate it, you will face criminal charges. We're adjourned. His gavel came down. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the reality sank in. Lena had won. Outside the courthouse, she couldn't stop shaking. Daniel wrapped an arm around her while Patricia handled the press that had somehow materialized. How does it feel? A reporter called. Like I can breathe again, Lena said. The settlement took another month to finalize. When the check cleared, her half of the marital assets plus the damages award, Lena stared at her bank account in disbelief. It wasn't the fortune Marcus had, but it was enough. Enough to live on while she figured out what came next. She paid Rosa back for every meal the woman had quietly not charged her for. She paid Tom's sister 6 months of rent in advance. She bought herself a used camera, nothing fancy but functional, and cried when she looked through the viewfinder for the first time in 4 years. And she asked Daniel if they could talk. They met at a coffee shop, neutral ground. Lena had been living in her duplex for 3 months now, working at Casa Verde, building a life, but also keeping careful distance from Daniel's house. They'd seen each other at Emma's winter concert. Lena had kept her promise to watch Emma be a snowflake, but things had been polite, careful, undefined. I wanted to thank you, Lena said, for everything. I know I've said it before, but Lena, Daniel cut her off gently. You don't need to keep thanking me. I do, though. Because without you, I wouldn't have survived this. You gave me a place to land when I had nowhere. You stood by me when it would have been easier to walk away. You let me borrow your strength until I could find my own. So what happens now? Daniel asked. Now I figure out who I am, what I want, what kind of life I'm building. She met his eyes. But I know one thing for certain. I want you in it. You and Emma, if you'll have me. Lena, I fell for you months ago. Probably that first night when you showed up terrified and stubborn and refusing to stay down. But I didn't want to push, didn't want you to feel obligated. I'm not obligated. I'm choosing. That's the difference. She reached across the table, took his hand. I'm choosing you, if you want that. More than anything, they were careful at first, both scarred by loss and trauma, both scared of screwing it up. But slowly, the relationship became real. Dinners that turned into sleepovers. Emma calling Lena on the phone just to chat, quiet mornings and loud arguments and making up and making plans. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Lena's photography started taking off. She'd built a website, started taking portrait sessions, small events. Word of mouth spread. She wasn't getting rich, but she was making art again. Being creative, being herself. Rosa promoted her to sous chef, which Lena turned down to focus on photography. But she kept working part-time, unwilling to completely leave the place that had given her a chance when no one else would. A year after the trial, Daniel asked Lena to move in. Not back into his house. They'd both agreed she needed to maintain her independence, but into a new place, together. A real decision made by two people who chose each other. They found a small house in Georgetown, not far from Casa Verde. It needed work. Of course it did. Everything in their lives seemed to. But it had a backyard for Emma and a spare room Lena could turn into a studio. On moving day, surrounded by boxes and chaos, Emma asked the question that had been building. Is Lena going to be my mom now? Daniel and Lena exchanged glances. They talked about this, but hearing Emma ask it directly was different. I'll never be your mom, Lena said gently, kneeling to Emma's level. Your mom was Sarah, and she loved you so much. I can't replace her, and I wouldn't want to, but I can be someone who loves you, who's here for you, who wants to be part of your life, if that's okay with you. Emma considered this seriously. Like a bonus person? Exactly like a bonus person. Okay, I'd like that. Emma hugged her, quick and fierce. Can I still call you Lena? Always. That night, after Emma was asleep in her new room, Daniel and Lena sat on the back porch of their new house. Their porch. Their house. Their choice. You ever think about that night? Daniel asked. When you knocked on my door? All the time. You ever regret it? Everything that happened after? Lena thought about it honestly. The fear, the fights, the cost, but also the strength she'd found, the life she'd built, the people who'd stood beside her. No, she said. Not for a second. You? Not even close. He pulled her closer. You saved yourself, you know. I just held the door open. Maybe, but I couldn't have done it alone. Good thing you didn't have to. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. Lena thought about Marcus, wondering briefly where he was, what he was doing. The restraining order held. She'd heard through Patricia that he'd remarried already, some socialite who looked eerily similar to Lena. She hoped the new wife would be okay, hoped someone would hold a door open for her if she needed it. But mostly, Lena didn't think about Marcus at all anymore. He was the past. This, Daniel's arm around her, Emma's gentle snoring from inside, the camera bag sitting by the door ready for tomorrow's shoot. This was her present, her future, her choice. I love you, she said quietly. I love you too. And in that moment, in the house they'd chosen together, surrounded by the life they were building piece by piece, Lena finally felt something she'd thought she'd lost forever. She felt free. Not because someone had rescued her, though Daniel had been there when she needed him most. Not because she'd won in court, though that victory had been crucial. But because she'd learned the most important truth. Freedom wasn't something someone could give you or take away. It was something you claimed for yourself every single day through every choice you made. She'd chosen to leave, chosen to fight, chosen to rebuild, chosen to love again. And those choices had made all the difference. The end.